Most of the time, we would not look at the risk of a single investment independently of all other assets. Instead, we would look at an asset as part of a larger portfolio. As such, new investments need to be considered in light of their impact on the risk and return of the investor's portfolio of assets. The financial manager's goal is to create an efficient portfolio, that is, a portfolio that maximizes return for a given level of risk. This is clearly the goal for the financial manager at a mutual fund, where the goal is to buy stocks and bonds in combination that's going to maximize returns for a given level of risk. In non-financial companies, the financial manager doesn't get to choose all the assets indiscriminately. So for example, a financial manager at Cisco is going to only look at investments in Cisco's type of business. Financial manager at Kraft likewise is going to be choosing between investments in the food processing industry. To calculate the return on the portfolio, we need to calculate the weighted average return of the individual assets that are in that portfolio. The return on the portfolio is simply, what weight do we have on asset 1 multiplied by asset 1's return, and then add all those up. So the return on the portfolio is simply a weighted average. For example, James purchases 100 shares of Walmart at a price of $55 per share, so his total investment in Walmart is $5,500. He also buys 100 shares of Cisco Systems at $25 per share, so the total investment in Cisco stock is $2,500. Combining these two holdings together, the total portfolio is worth $8,000. Of the total, about 68% is invested in Walmart and about 31% is invested in Cisco. And we come up with those simply by taking the amount invested in Walmart divided by the total portfolio size to arrive at the 68.75%, and the amount invested in Cisco Systems, 2,500, divided by the total portfolio size of 8,000 to come up with our weights. So our weight for Walmart is 0.6875 and our weight for Cisco is 0.3125, and the two weights together sum to a total of 1. As an illustration, we're going to form a portfolio. This portfolio is going to have AT&T, Caterpillar, Cisco, Microsoft, Google, Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, Apple, Berkshire Hathaway, and Coca-Cola. And to keep the illustration relatively simple, we're going to create an equally weighted portfolio. So of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 stocks, the weight on each one will be 0.1. This is an equally weighted portfolio, so we have 10% allocated to each stock. This is the same spreadsheet that we were using before, and again I urge you to open this spreadsheet and view this independently of the video to get a feel for how the calculations are done. Here in this page I have the monthly returns for each stock in the portfolio, and on other sheets I actually have the information that was downloaded from Yahoo Finance that shows the opening and closing values and how the monthly returns are calculated, and I'll leave that as an assignment for you to do on your own. So looking at our portfolio, February the 1st of 2007, so this is the February data. We've got the monthly return for Apple, APPL, the ticker symbol for Berkshire Hathaway, Caterpillar, CAT, Cisco, Google, Johnson & Johnson, Coca-Cola, Microsoft, Pfizer, AT&T in our portfolio. And I'd like you to look at the cell here, formula for this portfolio. You can see it's an equally weighted portfolio. 0.1 times Apple return, 0.1 times Berkshire Hathaway's, 0.1 times Caterpillar, and so forth. So all those weights have to total to 1. We have our portfolio return. So the portfolio return is simply the average return of the stocks in the portfolio. More specifically, it's a weighted average. And in this particular example, just to keep the illustration relatively simple, we have an equally weighted portfolio. The weights on all of them are 0.1. However, there's no reason in the real world to expect that that would be the case. So if we think of a company as a portfolio of assets, again, let's use the example of Burlington Northern Railroad, not all of their assets are going to have equal weights. They may have more invested in rail lines than locomotives. I have no idea if that's true or not, but there's no reason we'd expect it to be an equally weighted portfolio. So we're just doing that to keep this illustration simple. And then we have the monthly returns from February of 2007. I'm scrolling down here to January of 2017, where we have the monthly returns for each of the stocks. And we could calculate the arithmetic, not the geometric, the arithmetic average return of each one of these stocks. The reason I'm doing arithmetic average returns is that right now I'm not interested in how my portfolio performed. I'm interested in how these stocks performed. So that is, the geometric average, I would be interested in wealth changes, changes in the dollar amount of my portfolio. Here I'm just interested in how the actual stocks performed. So calculating the simple arithmetic average of those monthly returns from 2007 to January of 2017, the average monthly return for Apple was 2.44%. For Berkshire Hathaway, it was 0.8%. We kind of go across here. Google had 1.31%. Cisco 0.55%. Pfizer 0.66%. In our portfolio is, if I calculate its average going from up and down for all the months from February of 2007 to January 2017, I would come up with an average monthly return of 1.02%. I would also get 1.2% if I took the average of the mean values for each one of the stocks in our portfolio. So again, the portfolio's return is simply the average return of the stocks that are in the portfolio. And then next, we use that standard deviation function in Excel that we saw earlier to calculate the monthly standard deviation of the returns for each one of these stocks. So if we look at Apple, its standard deviation over this period of time was 9.19%. Berkshire Hathaway's standard deviation was 5%. Caterpillar was 9.95%. Go down here. Pfizer is 5.43%. Coca-Cola is 4.6%. Johnson & Johnson 4.1%. So looking at these numbers, they kind of make a little bit of sense. So we think about Coca-Cola and Johnson & Johnson. Think about their products, consumer goods, consumer drugs, as well as Coca-Cola, the drinks. That's relatively low risk. Most people probably don't say, hey, wow, the economy's a little bit rough, I'm going to cut back on my diet soda. No, they don't do that. Likewise, Johnson & Johnson, if you need a Band-Aid, you buy a Band-Aid. So we wouldn't expect them to have that much volatility about their returns, as opposed to a company like, think about Caterpillar. They're very sensitive to what's going on in the global economy. The global economy goes through a slowdown. People are buying less bulldozers and all the types of heavy equipment that Caterpillar makes. So we expect there to be a lot of volatility in Caterpillar's return. So overall, these tend to kind of make sense with what we would expect. AT&T, there's standard deviation's a little bit low. Again, we'd probably expect that. People probably don't slow down on their texting depending on what the GDP report is for a particular quarter. So that's kind of what we would expect. So we have the standard deviation of all these returns, and again, we calculate those based on the monthly returns. And also doing the exact same thing, calculate the standard deviation for a portfolio, looking at all those monthly returns. Again, calculate the standard deviation for a portfolio, looking at all the monthly returns. Now, if I take the simple arithmetic average of the standard deviation of the 10 stocks that are in the portfolio, look here at this cell here. So again, looking at the arithmetic average of the standard deviation of those 10 stocks, we see that it's 6.66%. But when we calculate the standard deviation for the portfolio, it only works out to be 4.4%. In other words, when we form a portfolio, we get a risk reduction of 6.66 minus 4.4 of 2.26%. Wow. When we form a portfolio, we get average return, but we get less than average risk. The average return over the 10 years, the 10 stocks in the portfolio, in other words, taking the average of those 10 stocks 10-year returns, we get 1.2%, and average return of the portfolio for each month, we also get 1.02%. So, to recap, when forming a portfolio, one gets the average return of the stocks that are in the portfolio, but less than average risk. That's as close as we're ever going to get to a free lunch in economics. But why? What is causing this?